Any petitions? Notices? Honourable members, question time, 45 minutes. The Honourable Governor of West New Britain.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. May I like ask him question without notice? Me like ask him law, Honourable Planning Minister, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The wet season is fast approaching for us in the province, and West New Britain is one of the disaster-prone provinces. There was a moratorium started in 2017 for all tax credit, and the former minister called for review, which was completed in 2018. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the tax credit scheme was back at the end of 2018. New Britain Palm Oil, being one of the major corporate company within our province, who does help during the time of disaster, especially when there was bridges collapsed or road networks cut off between Kimbe and Biala. But they have applied since beginning of 2019, and to date they are still waiting for the approval from Planning Department. Can the Honourable Minister give some assurance that these tax credit projects will be taking off for the benefit of our people in West New Britain and also for various other parts of the country? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister. My apology, the Minister for National Planning.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I thank the good governor for, one question he raised in his statement on the tax credit scheme. Deputy Speaker, I must make mention that, one, my department implements the tax credit scheme. In terms of the approval he's talking about, in terms of projects that were approved, previous decisions were made, one of which was to increase tax credit scheme from the percentage that was there to 2%. I would like to make mention to this House and honourable members that consultations have taken part, and on our department, Treasury, IRC, Customs, other revenue agencies that are responsible for collecting revenue. Because when we talk about tax credit scheme, it's about advancing tax for government programs like the ones for roads, other facilities that are done by tax credit scheme programs. There's about a couple of companies that actually do tax credit scheme for the benefit of this House. One of them, which would be Octedi Mining Limited, Pogora, Newcrest Mining, Oil Search, ExxonMobil, New Britain Palm Oil, Aga Oil Palm, Ramu Agro Limited Industries. These are the companies engaged in tax credit scheme. Now, the consultation that happened has gone through already. It's, I would like to advise through you, Deputy Speaker, that we've sent those consultations that have been facilitated through my department, through Treasury. Now, that is sitting in Treasury. I signed a letter this morning, coincidentally, advising Prime Minister and also Treasury Department to expedite that process so we can bring it forward. Now, that letter and those that we sent to Treasury, Treasury will go through that so that we can expedite and increase to the 2% ceiling that the government has made a decision on. So, to the governor and other provinces that are implementing tax credit scheme, the issue was the increase to the 2%. All that we're waiting for, Deputy Speaker, through you, is that we're waiting for Treasury to come back to us. And Prime Minister, in one of our conversations 2 weeks ago, asked me to expedite from Treasury and in consultation with the Treasurer, if we can bring that forward so that we can have the 2% to do projects that those companies are doing in terms of tax credit scheme. So to the Governor, I will make it my business. I signed a letter to Treasury today and CC to Prime Minister asking for that document to be expedited so we can increase and at the same time deal with those tax credit scheme programs that are happening in country as well. So that is we've done our share, our part on national planning as the implementer. Now it's just with Treasury to expedite paperwork on their side on the increase and also getting back to us, and we can expedite this week. And I can have a concrete answer for him as soon as Treasury gets back to me and to the people of West New Britain who are affected by those issues they are facing in terms of those tax credit scheme programs. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for East New Britain.
Mr. Speaker, I direct my questions to the Honorable Prime Minister and at the same time ask the Minister for Intergovernmental Relations to take note. Mr. Speaker, my questions are in regard to the issues of greater provincial autonomy, or to be more precise, the issue of greater power sharing with the national government, including the legal framework that will govern the system of decentralizing powers to provinces. Mr. Speaker, allow me firstly give a brief outline of our quest for greater power sharing to inform honorable members of this House before I ask my questions. Mr. Speaker, the quest for greater power sharing has been an important development program for the government and people of East Britain for a very long time. When I say very long time, we have waited for 22 years, Deputy Speaker. It has taken us 22 years to come this far with our campaign for empowerment of our province. Mr. Speaker, the purpose of our quest is to regain those essential powers for effective and productive governance that were lost as consequence of the reform to the provincial government system in 1995. Under that reform, the original organic law on provincial governments was abolished and replaced with the current organic law on provincial and local level governments. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the most important part of those powers taken away by the reforms include financial power, administration powers, and political powers. These powers are most essential for the effective government operations, financial sufficiency, social and economic development, good governance, and prosperity of the provinces. They aim to encourage provinces to be self-reliant and self-sustaining instead of depending heavily on national government for goods and services. We work hard. We also contribute meaningfully to the cover of this country. However, Mr. Speaker, the implementation of the current OLPG and LFG in 1997 gave another blow to our prospects of recovery quickly from the volcanic disasters. Under the reform, developments in East Britain began to slow down as the time went by. My people began to experience hardship in their livelihood. That situation of hardship continues today. Today, all road play bakara polketa. Mr. Speaker, today the economy of East Britain is struggling. All physical infrastructure like roads, airstrips, health facilities, education facilities, power supply, industries are in danger of collapse. Once upon a time, East Britain had the best road system in the country. Today, without adequate funding, as a useless Department of Works facility in Kokopo, we have some of the worst roads in the country.
Honorable Governor, we have a point of order. Member of TVWAN.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I never asked him question. I'm giving report belong province. I'm can find a time to give full report belong province. Said member can go straight to question loan. Thank you.
Member, your point of order is in order. I will ask the Governor to make your statement short and maybe get to your question.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. These questions are very, very important for the benefit of all of us and also this Parliament. I'll go ahead with my questions. Deputy Speaker, my questions to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, why did the Minister for Intergovernmental Relations treat our three provincial committees in a careless manner, or was it an insubordination from his part? That was autonomy to be granted by the national government. Number two, when will your government introduce the organic law on decentralization bill in Parliament for passing? Before I ask the third and fourth question, Deputy Speaker, please just allow me a bit of time. All the select autonomy committees in the three respective, provinces, East Britain, New Ireland, and Mipale complete in Pinisia. And we are only waiting for the direction from the Government Relations Department to give us the okay, so we do the final thing, so we prepare for NEC and up to Parliament. We have worked very hard. The three committees, we have spent a lot of money for the last 3 years since the autonomous power was declared to us by the former Prime Minister Peter O'Neill in October 2018. Long Triple province, long October, yeah. My question number 3. The O'Neill Dion government in 2012 declared the Alataw Accord 1, and later the O'Neill Abel government declared the Alataw Accord 2 as policies adopting autonomy as the key policy and undertook to grant autonomy to East Britain, New Ireland, and Enga. That's a 3 question. My third question now, Honorable Prime Minister. Why has your government not implemented the Alataw Accord policies to grant autonomy powers to East Britain, New Ireland, and Enga? And number 4, if your government is taking too long to put in place an organic law on autonomy, is the national government prepared to allocate 300 million kina unconditional grants per year to East Britain to enable us to achieve the level of development we want? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank you long question long Governor long East New Britain, long issue of autonomy. An important question I'm asking because this is one of our contemporary issues currently in debate between all governments long sub-national level as well as MIPLA national government. Me like Togo government law MIPLA ino Rausin this ting long autonomy. In fact, I'm set up yet. But me like answering question block law. Number 1, if suppose provincial and local level government all attend MIPLA good, or in a careless manner, some you talk, or only treating MIPLA one time disrespect, and me like talk sorrow or display. But I don't think that was the intention. As MIPLA take him office, Mr. Deputy Speaker. MIPLA look autonomy. One work or talk autonomy, suppose you know got financial ability, long sustaining autonomy. So instead of just feel good, cosmetic, talk antabanta bosem, O'Neill Dion government or O'Neill able government make him 8 year, Mr. Governor, Mr. Speaker, through you. 8 year. 8 year, he got full time long, only expand, fully arrive at the autonomy concept or like him. So, Mr. Speaker, me like Togo said, last 2 year, me play advances la talk lo try and pan him on the place in law where autonomy, harming national unity, but at the same time empowering you long function well, and not just functional autonomy, that's all. You name current autonomy, but you come back asking money lo waigani. So people like panim this place in law where you got ability to raise him revenue too. And this play me make him provincial and local level government want the people delay long come into fully move long this talk of autonomy long New Ireland, Enga province, East New Britain. And East New Britain, in my view, is amongst the first province that may really qualify for the sake of everyone, in a sense that provincial government system will function, LLC system function, only it's a sustainable economy blow without oil or gas money or gold money or some blood money or some blood we got long. So, Mr. Governor, again, Mr. Speaker, through you, Governor, your province overqualifies, but this area belong attach him revenue where you collect him. At the moment now, revenue and national government function, but people like that. You collect him this plan, you run him a provincial government function. Now, come lo national government function. Me believe long principle long decentralization. Individually as a leader, our country is made up of 1,000 different culture, na talk place, na kind of same. So thinking autonomy, all right, in order. But we just have to ensure that autonomy, come at the expense of national unity. But at the same time, you yet long province, you must get financial ability to raise revenue. Now, people like put in this aspect long raising revenue, going to thinking autonomy. The difference between policy law, Alataw Accord, na policy law, Mipla long Lolowata is simply this. Alataw Accord talk of functional autonomy, that's all. No different from provincial government thinking except for putting talk autonomy go inside. People are now like met him or married him, talked about you had raised him revenue, now you retain him. Long level below you, now you pass him balance, come back long national government, law animal national functions, law province, and law country one time. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I may give him talk assurance long leader. You may start in talk long 2012. A lot of one and start long 2012. I wish I'll complete in 2018 or some you talk. Time talk long pronounce him autonomy come to you. Talk that's all. You know, sends him low one time. Now me plug at this law work law make him.
Honorable Governor, what's your point of order?
The point of order is that I think the Prime Minister is misleading this Parliament. Since 2018, when I tried some part of what was given to us by the former Prime Minister, now actually I increased my revenue collection in the province by 25 million. Unfortunately, I lost that one because of the COVID-19. So let me assure this Parliament that if it's given to East Britain...
Honorable Governor, if you're trying to debate the answer the Prime Minister have said, I will not allow you to raise that point of order. So I think I'll ask the Prime Minister to complete the answer.
All right, Mr. Speaker, sorry, leader, I get all issue. Me asking you, you're most welcome to come look at me plan, look at my provincial government. We will go into what we are doing. Me plan to kill him thinking autonomy. A step in the right direction. But people like him all province too. Time you mean working so triple province work good, the rest of the province work good. So time you get function, you raise him revenue, you attend long health center, you attend the legal road, play where me district road or provincial road. Now people are coming to national level, so you mean let's make him lose ends. You pass him, you at your generation pass him 1995 organic law and provincial and local level government. You look at today, you mean current legacy law mismatch. Your current legacy law mismatch because you pass him law, nothing law feel good at the time. So me plan like come law reckless, plant your legacy issue. You pass him law, but you must pass him law and be solid. I mean, attach want them clear demarcation. One and work law national government, one and work law province, one and work law district. Today the law you pass him last year ago Peninsula District Development Authority is contested again in court because some like feeling was not good law constitution, organic law and provincial and local level government. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, me one bill want them talk to na think law government and autonomy. But me like delivering one product where me solid na sit down na sustaining you or some you got ability to raise some revenue. No can just buy policy instrument from Wagan it as well no. Mas law is supporting you long raising revenue that you running province you the way you like running. So thinking one kind, but the focus now long current government long empowering you by law long you raising revenue and sit down good law province. National government no can question you over time. You can go along way like get up, especially in attendance to your provincial functions at your level. So we'll get back to the Eastern Britain provincial government on where we are. And by way of responding to these questions, I was Government Relations Minister can also attend to him and his team, and will update himself and the other two sister provinces that at no time you may kill him thinking autonomy, but we want to give a product that is full and is achieving its intention instead of just a cosmetic approach. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, what's your point of order?
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to let the Governor of Eastern Britain know that the Governor's Council meeting.
Honorable Minister, if you want to...
Let me explain. He mentioned me...
Honorable Minister, if you want to respond again by giving answer to the...
No, you did not. You allowed them. You allow me to.
Honorable Minister, I won't allow you to.
So there was a council meeting.
Honorable Minister, resume your seat. Honorable Minister, resume your seat. Honorable Minister, Honorable Member for Goroka, you may ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I ask my question, for the record, I want to state my appreciation to the Prime Minister and the Government House, Minister Chachenko, for the state funeral organized by them to recognize the late Governor General Sir Silas Atopare. Sir Salus Atapare was the 7th Governor General of Papua New Guinea, and he was also the first member for Goroka. For that, for the record, I want to appreciate and say thank you to the people involved to arrange a dignified funeral for our leader. For that, I say thank you very much on behalf of the people of Goroka. Thank you. My question, Mr. Speaker, is to the State Enterprise Minister. Speaker, a couple of years ago, Goroka Urban Authority transferred some of its assets, especially the water assets, to the public enterprise. And those assets were transferred basically so that PNG Water can invest and develop the water supply system of Goroka. And up until now, there have been several visits by engineers of PNG Water to Goroka, but since then we have not seen or heard from PNG Water the status report of all these visits. My question, Mr. Speaker, is what is the plan for Goroka water supply system? And can the Minister state if and when he can look at our problem, especially the water problem in Goroka town? Thank you.
Minister for State Enterprise.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Goroka for this question. Mr. Speaker, unlike all the other towns which were under the National Water and Sewerage Act, Goroka was the only water district that was still under the control of the Goroka Urban LLG. And only 3 years ago, I then, as Minister responsible by ministerial determination in the National Gazette, declared Goroka to be a water district, and thereby making Goroka to come under the ambit of Water PNG Limited. Unfortunately, even despite the Gazette, our leaders from the Urban LNG did not accept that, and they wanted to have some discussions with Water PNG, and they wanted some monetary compensation for the transfer of the function. So discussions then came to a halt, and then we had the change of government and ministry. So there's been some delay caused by this, but Goroka still remains an important area. Towns like Kundiawa and Goroka have had so many recurring water problems. In fact, Goroka's problem is one of those which has now been given priority, and the good member himself has seen me on 2 occasions, and I've made it my duty to ask Water PNG to give it some attention, and work is being done now. And I can also point out that this government has not actually forgotten our people of Goroka. It went to the extent of making some form of payment in the order of 3 million kina for the use by our landowners, and to recognize their rights under the existing system. So I can assure the good member for Goroka that Goroka, together with Kundiawa, important areas that need attention, and a team from Water PNG has been working on it, and I anticipate being in a position to report again to the good member about what we've done over the next couple of weeks. So once again, I'd like to thank the good member for Goroka for this question. Yes, Goroka has always been in our radar, and work has been done. So in the next couple of weeks, we will see some positive developments. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
We have a supplementary from Governor Eastern Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. My supplementary is that in regards to this question, with the previous year, we've made arrangement where the provincial government with the Urban LLG and the Water PNG to enter into agreement, MOU. In that agreement for this Goroka water supply is that we'll have a company in charge of that, the shareholder, which is the stakeholders, that is the provincial government and the local level government and the district. And the management team, we want the PNG Water to be the management team over this Goroka water supply. In this MOU, the Water PNG board, there's a clause which we did not agree, is that they want any funds from outside to be kept in the trust account to be controlled by themselves. That's where the hold-up is. So my supplementary question is this. As the minister, can you talk to the board and we'll find a win-win situation for all parties or the stakeholders in the long run? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank the Governor of Eastern Islands for this supplementary question. First, I want to start by emphasizing to all of us here that we must not forget the fact that water is not owned or created by any of us here. No one has 100% ownership right over water. They can only have access rights right throughout our country. If we as leaders allow ourselves to be swamped by competing demands from our people, who, as I said earlier, do not create or own water, we are opening the floodgates for problems. But, Mr. Speaker, that does not mean to say that we will ignore the wishes of our people. They still continue to remain important stakeholders. And in the case of Goroka, we are looking at options. This situation also applies equally to our people from the Sirinomo area. We're looking at options to see whether we end in the arrangement where we pay use or access rights, knowing very well that no one owns water. We pay our landowners, who happen to be the stakeholders and guardians of this valuable resource, user access rights. So we can do it through a combination of ways, through a shareholding company or through a structure where our landowners' rights are recognized. And this government, led by our Prime Minister, has always been cognizant of the importance of our landowners. And in fact, the Prime Minister has been reminding me, has directed me to look at this closely. So we are working on a structure that hopefully can be presented to our landowners from Goroka as well as our landowners from Sirinomo. And hopefully we will be able to accommodate their interests. But I must remind us as leaders that we will not simply give in to the landowners and give them everything they want. There must be a balance. So we will work out a solution in the end. And
Honourable Minister, we have a point of order from Governor Central. Governor, what's your point of order?
I just want to stress to a good minister through you, Speaker, that even though we know that water doesn't belong to anybody, we do have instances when we build dams and vast amounts of land that belong to the people are taken up by these dams. And so this is to be taken into consideration when such decisions are made on how compensation and royalties are paid to the landowners. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, you continue on your...
Yes, thank you. I thank the good governor. Yes, I did say that we're looking at the issue of water user rights, and that includes compensation for our people whose land is taken up by the water because of the dam. So that's part of the consideration as well. So what I'm trying to say, Mr. Speaker, is that we are looking at offering a package that's acceptable to the people of Goroka, and as soon as Water PNG, as most of us will know, it has been subject of a merger between Agarobe and Water PNG, and once the merger process is completed, we think it will be done by the end of November. Then we will have a solid company who will then be able to look at those outstanding issues. So I will be able to then provide a good response to the member for Goroka as well as our governor for Eastern Islands. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The honourable member for Abau.
I question without notice. I wish to direct it to the Honourable Prime Minister. But if I can be allowed to give a very short preamble to the question. Last night, Mr. Speaker, I and my Central Province leaders, led by our governor, had the privilege of attending a briefing by the Central Province COVID team, task force. It was in that briefing that certain worrying issues were raised to us leaders in the Central Province. one very sad issue that was advised to us was that because Gerehu Hospital and PMJ's hospital are full up with the current spike of COVID in the city and other parts of the country, a couple of the Central Province patients were sent back from Gerehu Hospital, some of the private clinics, and Port Moresby General Hospital. And so we as leaders in that meeting last night discussed many issues, including the issue that our good governor has been raising in this honorable floor of parliament, and that is the recognition of Central Province in this National Capital District. And with our understanding of the task force advice that Central Province is also with NCD beginning to see the spike extending to the villages. The second issue that came out very clear and very sad was that we only have one doctor in Central Province who is managing this COVID spike. So he travels from Kairukuhiri to Goila to Rigo to Abau. Just one doctor. And the reason has been that under previous arrangements, under the Provincial Health Authority legislation, Central Province Health Authority, the hospital nominated was Kuikila Health Center. Kuikila Health Center is just a health center, but it was declared a provincial hospital. And there lies the biggest challenge for us in Central Province. We were given a health center to be the provincial hospital by declaration by the minister then. And now with the COVID rise, we only have one doctor. And so the request was, let's find some funding. And the doctor said, I need 2 other doctors. And so we were discussing options. And thank you, through you, Speaker, thank you, Prime Minister, because we were advised last night that your cabinet...
Honourable Member, we have a point of order.
Member for Abau. Me like taking this lot time long. Talk thank you, this lot points for you. But there's a new member for this parliament. I have seen you Minister for Health several years. Have you done something for Rico people? Can you brief this one to your people first before you ask the question to Prime Minister?
Honourable Minister, I will not take your point of order. Your point of order is out of order. The question is very important for our people. The life is constant life. So I'll allow the member to continue on with your short statement, make it short, and let the Prime Minister to
Thank you,
answer you.
Mr. Speaker. That demonstrates a misunderstanding towards us, the Central Province people. And that's the issue that I want to address, Mr. Speaker. And so the issues that we discussed were a couple of options. Our patients have been turned away. We only have one doctor because Kuikila was nominated a provincial hospital. And we were looking at options. And I was saying, thank you, Prime Minister, because your cabinet, we were advised by the Honourable Governor and Minister for Transport, actually approved the building of the Central Provincial Hospital, the long-awaited hospital, because this Central Provincial Hospital was approved 3 times now. Temu government, O'Neill government, and now Prime Minister, your government, 3 times. And so when are we going to provide the funding? And in the briefing that we had last night, they were still providing a right design so that we can tender next year. So we are looking at building coming up in 4 years' time. That's a usual thing. And so, Mr. Speaker, I have 2 questions to ask the Prime Minister with the Health Minister to take note of. And that is, with the approval of the Central Provincial Hospital by Cabinet, and I think a contractor was already awarded at the same time, and given my personal understanding that the current spike peak will not happen until another 2 or 3 months later, we are looking at December. That means that the current situation of the Gerehu and the Port Moresby General Hospital filling up, and the aquatic center will also fill up, meaning that we have to make a very, very urgent and quick decision. And at the backdrop of the cabinet decision to build a central provincial hospitals, there are governments around the world that can build a COVID hospital within 1 week. And given that this spike, my understanding is it's going to be peaking later on, I think right now is an opportunity for the government to make that decision very, very quickly.
Honourable Member, we have a point of order. Member for Ejibitari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do understand the importance of the question. I think as leaders of this House, I think it is very important that we start encouraging vaccination. This is the solution to the problem. Talking about building hospitals and all this is going to cost millions and millions of kina. Why can't we be talking about vaccination?
Honourable Member.
That is the solution to the problem,
Honourable
Mr. Speaker.
Member, thank you for your concern, but you're trying to debate the question raised by the member. So, Member, can you get your question short and let the Prime Minister respond to?
Speaker, it's another misunderstanding by the leader. Typical misunderstanding of leaders. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the point is that with the current spike, the 2 hospitals we have in the city are already full. And patients, particularly Central Province, we have already been turned away as the report of last night by our advisors. And therefore, I'm asking through you, the Prime Minister, if a decision could be made in that regard. We've got land in Bautama. We already approved the hospital under the Prime Minister's leadership. There are countries that can be asked to do a phase 1 of the hospital as part of the strategy to look after the sick. And Honourable Member for Ejibitari, in the discussion that we had, we actually said that Central Province will be pro-vaccine. That's what we will declare, that we are promoting vaccination in Central Province, because that's the only way. The second question, Mr. Speaker, if that is not possible, Mr. Speaker, and Honourable Minister for Health, I have already been discussing this with. Port Moresby General Hospital has a lot of doctors, while Central Province under COVID has only 1 doctor. So we are struggling. Kwikila hasn't got many doctors. I strongly recommend, and I request the Prime Minister, could you make the decision for the Central Provincial Health Authority nominate Port Moresby General Hospital as the hospital under the Central Province Health Authority. Then we don't have to go and look for 2 doctors outside the system. We already had many doctors in the Port Moresby General Hospital. Port Moresby General Hospital has 900 beds. There are only 30 or 50 beds, COVID beds. They can extend and manage it accordingly. And so if those 2 options can be looked at, Mr. Speaker, I believe that for us Central Province people, our people will stop being turned away. And the last point is, Mr. Speaker, under the Hippocratic Oath, the ethics that doctors make an oath on, that we doctors are doctors without borders. That means we don't turn away doctors for color, religion, what type of sickness. The fact that patients have been turned away from Port Moresby General Hospital, Gerehu Hospital, and private hospital is illegal. That must be stopped immediately by the authority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Deputy Speaker, let me say thank you to the member for Abau for this series of questions, especially relating to the health of our people. Is no joke, and I appreciate him raising this at the highest level, where we should be sensitive to the plights of our people. I start by answering backwards from the last point he made. No doctors in our country should be turning away patients. But the structural issues they report to report or come under different PHAs, etc., should not be the case in which patients are turned away. And especially when you look at the Central Province issue, I concur with him. The Central Province has been absent of a provincial hospital for a long time. And governments before have made attempt to deliver a Central Provincial Hospital. We've reviewed that. We've also allowed for a hospital to be built at Bautama. In fact, last year and this year we've allocated 10 million kina. And my memory is failing me, but I think whether another 10 million kina is put in this year for the earthwork in and around Bautama to be prepared to ensure when we plant a hospital or we plant a provincial building there, it is sitting on a properly planned and landscaped area in as far as permanent hospital or permanent provincial setup is concerned. So last year and this year, I think there was a 10 million appropriated for last year and 10 million for this year in the context of extra allocations we're making to provincial districts. That was geared towards preparing Bautama for a hospital to be planted there. And our cabinet has already approved a permanent hospital for Central Province to be stationed at Bautama. But in between now and that time, that 4 years or 3 years, or 2 years, in fact, in a nationwide program, we want to deliver 21 provincial and a 22nd, the Bougainville Regional Hospital